Fiancee abandoned me at the altar after taking a $50,000 wedding loan in my name. So I reported her for fraud, and now she's facing criminal charges. I'm 33M, and until recently, I thought my life was lining up in a pretty normal way. I've been dating a 29F for a year, and everything felt right, at least on the surface. She was charismatic, had a strong personality, and always talked about wanting something stable. I was at a point where I wanted to settle down, so I proposed, and she said yes without hesitation. My parents seemed happy for me, though my dad was always a bit more skeptical. He's the type who can sniff out red flags before anyone else, but I convinced him it was all good, that I'd finally found a partner who appreciated honesty and commitment as much as I did. Things started getting weird when we dove into wedding planning. I told her I wanted a modest ceremony because I'm not the kind of person who needs everything over the top. But she insisted on something big. She kept saying, "You only get married once, so let's do it big." She had this plan for a fancy venue, top-tier catering, expensive decor, the works. At first, I went along mostly because I wanted her to be happy. When I talked to my dad about it, he told me to be sure I knew how expensive it would get, but I brushed him off. I figured once we were married, it'd be worth it, and we'd handle any debt together. A couple months into planning, she came to me with the idea of getting a wedding loan. Initially, I suggested we use some of our existing savings, hers and mine, but she claimed she was holding on to her savings for a special honeymoon surprise and didn't want to mix that money with wedding expenses. She seemed to be pushing me hard to take out a loan in my name, saying it would simplify things because my credit was better. I was uncomfortable with the idea. I mean, who wants to start a marriage in serious debt? But she kept hammering on the point that we only get one shot at a dream wedding. She said it'd break her heart if we scaled back the ceremony. I eventually caved because I thought, we'll be married, it'll all be ours anyway. Deep down, though, I had this nagging feeling that something was off. We ended up at the bank, and I saw the final figures, $50,000. She assured me this would cover the venue, catering, photography, flowers, everything. She told me I was a wonderful fiancé for helping her have the wedding of her dreams. That flattery worked on me. I signed. I remember my dad raising an eyebrow when I told him, but I still believed we could handle it. This is the person I plan to spend my life with, after all. Not long after we got the loan, she started acting weird. One moment she was all sweet and excited about the wedding. The next she was off doing her own thing, buying high-end clothes and accessories that didn't look wedding-related. She'd leave for hours, come back with random bags, then brush it off when I asked questions. She'd say it was wedding decor or claim she was meeting with a vendor and had to buy supplies. I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt, especially since I'd never actually planned a wedding before. Maybe that stuff really was needed, right? Meanwhile, her parents were beaming about how fancy the wedding would be. They never offered to pitch in. They just say stuff like, "That's your job as the groom, isn't it?" Whenever I tried to talk finances, her father would shrug it off like it was already settled. Her mother would gush about how their daughter found a guy who truly cared enough to give her the best. It was uncomfortable, but I tried to ignore it because I genuinely cared for her. My dad, on the other hand, kept pulling me aside to remind me to protect myself. He said something about how it was all moving a bit too fast. I chalked up his concerns to typical parental caution. As we got closer to the big day, I wanted more details. Where exactly was the reception going to be? Which caterer did we settle on, etc. But she kept telling me not to worry. She'd say, "You'll see it all come together." That's the fun part, right? Something about that didn't sit right with me. We were mere weeks away from the wedding, and I hadn't spoken to a single vendor personally. She claimed she hired a wedding planner who handled the entire process. She even gave me a name, but every time I asked for that person's contact info, she'd say the planner was so busy that we should just let her do her job. I tried to stay calm and trust my fiancé. But the biggest red flag popped up when I got a call from the bank about some suspicious charges on a new credit card they said was in my name. They wanted to confirm some purchases of thousands of dollars in random stuff, none of which sounded wedding-related. I freaked out because I'd never opened any new card. When I confronted my fiancée, she acted flustered for a moment, then quickly claimed it was part of the wedding loan package, a promotional offer or something the bank must have automatically set up. She brushed it off as a mix-up. I remember feeling a pit in my stomach, but I also knew the wedding was coming up fast, and we had so much on the line. I let it go, hoping it was just an error that could be fixed after the ceremony. Then came the wedding day. I was at the venue bright and early, wearing my suit, feeling anxious and excited. I asked the staff if everything was in order, the flowers, the caterers, the decorations. They looked at me with confusion, saying they only had a partial reservation on file under my name, hadn't seen any of the vendors my fiancé was supposed to have booked. Guests started arriving, and I was panicking. My fiancé was nowhere to be found. I checked my phone, no calls, no texts. Another hour passed, and the staff told us we'd have to either wrap up or pay extra if we stayed. People were milling around, asking what was going on, and I had no answers. Her father finally said he got a voicemail from her. Tell him I can't do it. I'm sorry. That was it. She bailed. No explanation, nothing. Her mother was crying, claiming she had no idea why. Her father was furious at me for dragging everyone here if I wasn't sure she'd show up. My dad got into an argument with him, telling him to calm down because their daughter just disappeared and left me at the altar. Guests were awkwardly filtering out, offering me half-hearted condolences. I felt numb. I don't even remember how I got home that day. It was the strangest mixture of heartbreak, humiliation, and confusion I'd ever felt. That night, I started getting notifications from the bank about more charges. Almost $18,000 spent on all sorts of non-wedding related items. Suddenly, it clicked. A huge chunk of that 50 grand loan wasn't going to any venue or caterer. None of it was legit. She'd been bleeding the account for her own purchases, and the vendors I assumed she booked never saw a dime. Over the next couple of days, I reached out to every florist, caterer, photographer I thought we'd hired. Each one told me the same thing. We only spoke with her once, and we never got a down payment. It was clear she orchestrated a plan to get me to sign that loan, took the money, faked wedding arrangements, and ran. I wasn't sure what to do next. At first, I was too embarrassed to even talk about it. But after a day or two, I realized I was on the hook for that $50,000. The new credit card was maxed out. The bank was calling me for repayment. I talked to the police on the non-emergency line, explained the situation, and they told me to file a report for fraud. That's when it all became very real. I decided to do it because I didn't have a choice. She'd basically stolen my identity and my money, then left me stranded. My dad came with me to the station. I gave them all the paperwork, loan documents, bank statements, the suspicious credit card info. The officer I spoke with recommended I get a lawyer too. So I went to see an attorney specializing in consumer fraud. He was pretty blunt about it. If she forged my signature or opened lines of credit in my name without permission, that was a big deal. I felt guilty even considering pressing charges against someone I loved, but I realized that was exactly why she thought she'd get away with it. She assumed I'd be too embarrassed or too soft to take legal action. During this time, her parents blew up my phone. Her father left angry voicemails, telling me not to ruin her life over a misunderstanding. He said she was just a bit careless with money and got cold feet about the wedding. I told him she hadn't just been careless, she'd flat out committed fraud. My dad took the phone at one point and told him, "Your daughter's the one who ruined my son's life, not the other way around." Her father hurled a bunch of insults and hung up. A few days later, her mother showed up at my apartment unannounced. She was crying, saying her daughter was in a bad place, that she was panicking about the wedding and overspent in the process. I asked where the money was actually spent. Why was there no wedding deposit anywhere? She just kept saying I shouldn't press charges because it would destroy her daughter's future. She tried to guilt-trip me, calling me heartless when I refused to budge. I told her she left me with $50,000 of debt and no explanation. She can't just walk away from that. Her mother stormed out. It got crazier. I got a text from a strange number that sounded like it was from my ex-fiancé, basically telling me to drop everything and that I was partly to blame because I knew the risks. She said I was trying to ruin her out of spite. I tried calling back, but no one answered. I called my attorney, who said to document everything. The bank did an internal investigation on the credit card and found the signature on the application was definitely not mine. That gave the police enough to really push forward with a criminal case. The father tried one last stunt by coming to my workplace with a random guy he claimed was a lawyer. He demanded I sign some document agreeing to drop the charges in exchange for a partial repayment. It was nowhere near $50,000. I refused. He threatened to trash my reputation, said he'd claim I was abusive toward his daughter. I told him I had proof of everything, texts, emails, receipts, and that he could say whatever he wanted because it wouldn't hold up under scrutiny. He backed down and walked away, calling me a bunch of names in the process. My coworkers were stunned. Finally, the police tracked her down about 6 weeks after the wedding day. She'd been staying with a friend who apparently had no idea what was going on. She got picked up on charges of fraud and identity theft, and it hit the local court system. When I went to file additional paperwork, I ran into her parents. They were livid. They tried to argue in the hallway, saying I was overreacting, that she was just young and made some big mistakes. But the evidence was all stacked against her. The district attorney was pretty confident that there was enough to prosecute. She might get a plea deal, who knows, but the bottom line is she's facing real consequences. I heard from a mutual friend that she's calling me vindictive, saying I was the one who pushed for a fancy wedding. That's insane, because I have the text messages showing I wanted something more low-key. Besides, it's not about the wedding anymore. It's about the fact that she used my credit, spent the money on who knows, and forged my signature for more credit lines. That's not just a mistake. It's blatant theft. People ask me if I ever loved her. Yeah, I did at one point, or I believed I did. But after what she pulled, I can't ignore that she basically saw me as a walking wallet. That hurts more than I can describe, but there's some relief in knowing I'm no longer tied to someone who could do something so manipulative. My dad told me this was a brutal lesson, but better to learn it now than end up married to her and facing an even bigger disaster. I'm working on getting the loan stuff sorted out. According to my lawyer, if the court finds she committed fraud, the bank might let me off the hook, or at least restructure the debt so I'm not destroyed by it. It's a long process, and in the meantime, I'm still making minimum payments so my credit doesn't tank. It's stressful, but I'm determined to get through it. My dad's been helping me stay afloat, and my mom's worried sick about me, but I keep telling her I'm okay. I'm angry, I'm hurt, but I'm handling it. I don't feel guilty pressing charges. At first, I did, because I couldn't believe I was going after someone I loved. But she crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. If she'd come clean, apologized, or tried to fix things, maybe I'd feel differently. But she ran, lied, and then blamed me. There's no forgiving that. Some people might say I'm petty, but those same people aren't stuck with a massive loan that was supposed to be for a wedding that never happened. I never imagined I'd be the kind of guy who gets left at the altar and then ends up in a courtroom with his ex, but that's my reality now. I take comfort in the fact that I'm standing up for myself instead of letting her and her entitled parents walk all over me. If she just stuck around and tried to talk it out, maybe we could have handled it differently, but the way she went about it, she basically forced my hand. Now I'm in the weird position of trying to move on while still dealing with legal stuff that keeps dragging me back into the nightmare. I'm focusing on my job, leaning on my friends, and spending more time with my dad, who's been my rock. Every time I feel a sting of regret, I remind myself that I dodged a bullet. I can't even imagine what life would have been like married to her if she pulled something like this now. It's terrifying to think about. I guess I just want to share this in case anyone else has that gut feeling something is off in their relationship and they're ignoring it because they really want to believe in their partner. Don't let anyone push you into financial obligations that make you uncomfortable. If something feels shady, question it. It might be embarrassing to step back and look paranoid, but trust me, it's nothing compared to getting abandoned at the altar and stuck with a giant debt. That's the gist of my story. I'm pressing charges, she's facing the consequences, and I'm doing my best to dig out of this financial mess. I'm not going to pretend I'm perfectly fine. It's been a nightmare. But I also know I did the right thing by going to the authorities. She thought she could just vanish with my money and face zero fallout. Turns out life doesn't work that way. If you burn someone that badly, don't be surprised when they fight back. I never expected to have a fiancé turn into an actual criminal defendant, but here we are. And oddly enough, despite everything, there's a sense of relief that comes with finally seeing the truth. Better now than later. I'd rather be single than tied to someone who saw me as nothing more than a quick payday. Maybe one day, this will be a cautionary tale I share with people about trusting your instincts. For now, I'm just taking it day by day, hoping the court case wraps up soon and that the bank doesn't hold me responsible for a loan I was tricked into. And if anyone reading this is in a similar boat, don't let fear or shame keep you quiet. Stand up for yourself. Sometimes that's all you can do.